What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and I'm packing everything up, which is why it's kind of kind of devoid of space behind me. Well, there's space, but it's just empty space. But I want to talk about Marvel Legacy for a minute or two. You know, I've had my little rant. You know, I jumped on Periscope earlier and got my irritation out of my system and all that kind of good stuff. And I think that making a YouTube video is a time to be reasonable and kind of, you know, like, hey, let's approach this from a logical standpoint. Although I imagine a lot of you are still pretty angry, and rightfully so. Marvel's in a weird situation right now. I mean, first and foremost, for me, Marvel Legacy, my work's kind of cut out for me, right? Like, they're bringing back a lot of classic characters and they're combining them with new characters. A lot of people are getting into comics for the very first time. Marvel Legacy will be their jumping on point, and they won't really know a whole lot about the classic characters. They might be curious about them or whatever the case may be, but it'll offer me the opportunity to go through and I guess begin the process of bringing back character explanations, bringing back like team explanations, which I've been needing to do for quite some time. Honestly, I love the idea of telling stories, talking about stories on my channel, but after a while, you just kind of get burned out of doing stories all the time, and you just want to try something different, kind of go back to I guess, more original content. But the fact remains, you know, for me, I feel like Marvel Legacy's kind of been or Marvel Comics has been in kind of a tough spot recently. A lot of people have been getting irritated with Marvel because I think despite what different writers or different fans may say, I think most people read comic books either out of curiosity, just, you know, for the sake of learning about something new, or because they like the escape. You know, I, for example, sometimes just like to veg out and just read a story about the Incredible Hulk just wrecking stuff. You know, I just like to read stories about the Incredible Hulk just ripping things to pieces, you know, like crushing vehicles and tearing folks apart. You know, sometimes I just like to read stories about Thor, you know, just smashing folks with his hammer, or Captain America, just freedom, you know, and then just fighting on behalf of, you know, the Avengers or something like that. I'm not really sure. But I like to veg out and just read those stories. I think that Marvel's tactic, I guess, of being more topical at the moment, you know, putting a lot of politics into their stories, I think it's sort of driven people off, and I think it's created kind of an issue. And the reason why I say that is, you know, let's take, for example, like Captain America. It's no secret that a lot of people are really irritated with what's going on in the Captain America comics right now. You know, for example, like Secret Empire. A lot of people don't like the idea of Secret Empire. And I think the reason why they feel that way, coming from, or at least trying to understand the perspective, because I enjoy Secret Empire. I think it's a good story. But coming from their perspective, I think that for them, Captain America kind of represents like the moral foundation of the Marvel Universe. He's the one guy that always does the right thing. He's the one guy that you can always count on. He's the one guy where, despite not being nearly as powerful as a lot of the superheroes out there, his word is basically law. When Captain America says, hey, look, this is what we're going to do, then like the argument stops, and that's what gets done. Just because of the fact that within the comic book landscape, a lot of the superheroes have a lot of respect for him. And I think a lot of people looking at that and seeing that he's basically a bad guy kind of takes away from what they consider to be the moral fiber, I guess, of the Marvel Universe. I mean, let's take, for example, Superman. You know, Superman well, it's Superman. I mean, you'd have to leave the planet Earth to find people who wouldn't know who Superman is, and even then there's no guarantee. I mean, there's probably aliens somewhere reading a Superman comic. I have no idea. I'd like to believe that's true. I think it'd be pretty amazing. Go to Mars and find Martians reading, like, you know, Action Comics #1. I think it'd be kind of funny. But the fact remains, Superman is the moral backbone of DC Comics. He's waxed, he's waned. There's the, you know, Golden Age Superman who, you know, in the eyes of a lot of people, never did anything wrong. There's the modern day Superman who's a little morally ambiguous. But people look at Superman and say he's the moral backbone of the Justice League, of the DC Universe. If you look at the instances when Superman has been a bad guy, they're usually always alternate reality stories. You know, for example, like Injustice. The Joker tricked Superman into killing Lois Lane and his unborn child. Superman went crazy, lost his mind, and instituted this, you know, international, I guess, domination of the world. Just became like this fascist leader, joined like the Sinestro Corps, the Yellow Lantern Corps, and all that kind of good stuff. When you look at Superman Red Son, you know, that tells a story where he was adopted by a Russian family because he landed in Russia instead of landing in the United States. The result is that he's eventually discovered and taken in by Joseph Stalin, and he's raised to become a propaganda piece and eventually becomes dictator of the world, instilling this perfect utopia, basically through, you know, through mind control. But when you look at these different alternate reality versions of Superman, for the most part, he's a bad guy in those. You never really see an instance where he's like, you know, vying for world domination in the main DC universe, because he's like the one character you just don't change. The one guy that you usually always keep the same. Again, he's died and different things like that, but for the most part, he's always the good guy. And a lot of folks view Captain America the same way. You know, for me, the political element, you know, for example, of Marvel Comics is something that I've kind of struggled with. I think there are some stories that lend themselves to political discussions or topical discussions more so than anything else. I think Captain America Sam Wilson is a great opportunity to focus on topical discussions. I think stories like Black Panther and the Crew are a great opportunity to focus on topical discussions. I don't think The Champions is a comic that should focus on politics. I don't really think The Avengers is a comic that should focus on politics, and Captain America to a degree, but only insofar as like how it affects freedom or something along those lines. But I don't really think that comic books across the board should focus on politics. And that's why I think stories like Black Panther and the Crew would have succeeded had everything not been focusing on politics, you know, in Marvel Comics at the moment. For me, if I want to focus on real world issues, if I want to focus on, you know, what our governments of the world are doing or something like that, you know, I'll turn on C-SPAN or CNN or Fox News or MSNBC, some news company somewhere, and digest that. For comic books, I want to read about a fictional character with a fictional set of abilities that are impossible to have in the real world, achieving impossible odds against an overwhelming force. That's what I want. That's what I enjoy. I just like the fighting. I like the storytelling. I like the grandiosity of it all. You know, I like the interpersonal relationships. I mean, it's fine, you know, if they deal with the political aspect. X-Men always did that. X-Men always focused on the idea of oppression. But X-Men didn't invoke, you know, the actions of Bill Clinton for the most part. The X-Men didn't invoke the, you know, the actions of, you know, George W. Bush Sr., or I guess George H.W. Bush Sr. They didn't really invoke that. It was just the idea of people like William Stryker, you know, this religious fundamentalist who believed it was his mission from God to kill mutants. It was always usually confined to the comic books themselves and the environment of the comic books. And I kind of feel like over time, that feeling's been forgotten. I feel like over time, that seems to have gone away. And what I'm hoping with Marvel Legacy is that that comes back, that we get this, you know, return to familiarity. We still stay topical. We still, you know, deal with the idea of mutants focusing on oppression. We still deal with these issues that people can relate to. We just do it in a way that, you know, political correctness isn't being thrown at everybody. You know, that every comic book is not a political statement on the current state of the United States and all the things that are wrong with it. Again, I know what's wrong with the country. I don't need the comic books to tell me that. Instead, I want the comic books to help me escape that, even if it's only for an hour or 2 hours or something along those lines. So, I mean, at this point, it's really too early to tell when it comes to Marvel Legacy. I mean, in the end, all we've really gotten are covers. They really haven't given us anything. We know that most of the titles that we have are going to stay. Some of those titles might change. There's been, you know, 3 or 4 publications that have been introduced that are brand new. Marvel 2-in-1's coming back, which looks like it's going to be kind of fun. The Marvel 2-in-1 line of stories, for those of you guys who don't know, were great. They were pretty fun. It was pretty cool to just see team-ups, you know, in a lot of different adventures. They usually starred Ben Grimm, but they were pretty cool back in the day. Ben Grimm being goofy and kind of weird. Of course, we get Bruce Banner, the Incredible... No, I'm sorry. We get Amadeus Cho. He's going to stay as the Incredible Hulk. The classic Wolverine comes back. You know, there's some things that are, for the most part, staying the same, but it looks like a lot of the classic characters that we know are going to be making their return. Bruce Banner, the Incredible Hulk, will probably come back. The She-Hulk title's being rebranded. Just a few things here and there that are going to kind of be adjusted. But what I'm hoping for is that it's the stories themselves that begin to see a shift. That it's the stories themselves that go back to the idea of what made Marvel great. Because I don't think politics is what made Marvel great. I think that was a part of it. But I think that what made Marvel great was the oohs and the ahs, being wowed, being enamored by these fictional characters that could do insane things. Peter Parker empowering teenagers, Carol Danvers empowering young women, the Fantastic Four exploring the depths of space in these different realities, the Incredible Hulk just smashing stuff. You know, I think those are the kind of things that drove people to fall in love with comics in the first place. And I'm really hoping we get that return with Marvel Legacy. But anyway, guys, just wanted to kind of throw that out there, you know, give you guys my, not stutter, give you guys my own thoughts on you know, where things stand at the moment. Again, I think it's really too early to tell. But at this point, I guess I'll be rolling out character and team explanations. Wrapping up some of the stories that I really enjoyed from All New, All Different Marvel and Marvel 2.0. And yeah. So anyway, guys, we're going to go ahead and bring this video to an end. And I will catch you all later. Peace.